Welcome and good afternoon. This is Commish Orr, and it is time for the next round of the Best of the Decades, the 1930s Best of the Decades tournament using season ticket baseball. We take a look at the tournament bracket. We can see that these games have been played, the September 8th through 14th games. That's the league date, obviously, not the real date. And we can see that there were a couple of sweeps and a couple of series that went the full 5 games. In the sweeps department, the Washington Nationals, or Senators, whichever you want to call them, beat the New York Yankees. The 1939 New York Yankees swept them 3-0. This is after Washington had topped the 1939 Red Sox in the play-in round. And so they advanced, and the Yankees fell to the losers bracket. Over the National League, the 1935 Cubs did the same thing to the 1939 Reds. The Reds had beat the Pirates, but fell, getting swept by the Cubs here in the first real round of the tournament. So the Reds dropped to the losers bracket. And then, as I said, we had a couple of games go the full 5 games, or a couple of series go the full 5 games. And one of those series was the 1931 Philadelphia Athletics against the 1935 Tigers. The Philadelphia Athletics took this one in Game 5, and it was a pretty crazy Game 5. Let's take a look at the old box score here. It was in Philadelphia, and the Tigers were in control. Schoolboy Rowe was on the mound for the Tigers, facing off against Rube Wahlberg for the Athletics. And Detroit got on the board early on. They were up 4-0 in the top of the third, thanks to a Goose Goslin 2-run homer. Now, Philadelphia will get one of those back in the bottom of the third. But that's how the score stayed until the 6th, when Philadelphia got another run back to cut that lead to 4-2 at that point. However, Detroit got that run right back in the 7th against Wahlberg. And so they were up 5-2 at that point. But Philadelphia will get another run, or another run in the bottom of the 7th to make it 5-3. But in the top of the 8th, things kind of fell apart. Hank Greenberg hit a solo shot to lead off the 8th inning to extend that Detroit lead to 6-3. And Eddie Rommel came out, Rube Wahlberg came out, and Eddie Rommel came in to pitch. And Rommel allowed another couple of runs thanks to a JoJo White 2-run single. That extended the Detroit lead to 8-3 at that point. So Detroit fans were celebrating already with a 5-run lead here in the 8th inning. But in the bottom of the 8th, things fell apart. After Rowe retired the first 2 batters, he walked the next 3 to load the bases. Vic Sorrell came in, and he couldn't get anybody out either. Dib Williams hit a single to score one of the runs, kept the bases loaded. Eric McNair walked, so Sorrell walked in a run, and then Max Bishop hit another RBI single. And so with those runs, suddenly the game looked way closer. It was 8-6 at that point. So they brought in Roxy Lawson, who's one of their better relievers. And he didn't fare much better, as Mule Haas hit a single in the next at bat that tied the game, actually. So it must have been 8-7 at that point. So yeah, the game got tied there, 8-8 in the bottom of the 8th, with a 5-run 8th inning for Philadelphia, as Detroit relievers just kind of fell apart. They couldn't keep the lead. That's after Schoolboy Rowe was just 1 out away from getting out of the 8th inning unscathed. So we headed to the 9th, and Tigers were pretty much demoralized at that point. They went down 1-2-3 in the 9th. And Chief Hogsett came in the ninth for Detroit. And Jimmy Fox led off with a double. Or I guess this was against Roxy Lawson. Jimmy Fox led off with a double. And Lawson hit Bing Miller and got ejected from the game, actually, there in the ninth. So with runners on first and second, that's when Hogsett came in. And Jimmy Dykes hit a single, an RBI single, walk-off single to win it for Philadelphia. Philadelphia had been down 8-3, as I said. They come back and win this one 9-8 with a walk-off single in the bottom of the ninth. Heartbreak for Detroit. Philadelphia advances. So the other 5-game series also had some drama in the late innings. This one against the 1931 Cardinals were facing off against the 1934 Giants. And much like the last game, the Giants took a 4-0 lead in the fourth. Mel Ott hit a home run. Mel Ott has 5 home runs now in the series in just 5 games. He has 5 homers. I think he had a 2-homer game in there. So he hasn't homered in every game because he had a 2-homer game, but he has 5 overall in 5 games. Crazy. And they scored another couple of runs thanks to JoJo Moore's 2-run double in the fourth. That put them up 4-0 against. So with Carl Hubble on the mound, facing off against Hallahan, they were feeling pretty confident. But Pepper Martin led off the fourth with a home run of his own, a solo shot. And the Cardinals would score a couple more runs to cut that lead to 4-3. Very next inning, Pepper Martin again with an RBI double that tied the game at 4. Cardinals would score again in the 6th. This time, George Watkins driving in Sparky Adams with an RBI single. And that gave the Cardinals a 5-4 lead. The Giants, though, not to give up, scored again in the 7th, thanks to a Bill Terry double, RBI double there. And then, very interesting in the 8th. By the way, the game was tied here going into the 8th. Lefty O'Doul had actually gotten injured in the 5th inning, running to first. And Johnny Vergez, I may be mispronouncing some of these names from the 30s, but Johnny Vergez, his replacement, hit a home run in his first at-bat in the tournament to give the Giants a 6-5 lead at that point. Now, the Cardinals would get that run back in the bottom of the 8th with a sac fly from Sparky Adams. And that sent us to the 9th inning, where the Giants threatened again when they had runners on the corners with no outs. Unfortunately, that's as close they would get as close as they would get to scoring, as Mel Ott and Travis Jackson hit shallow fly balls, and Vergez lined out to first base to end the inning. Bottom of the 9th, Hubble still on the mound, and Chick Hafey led off with a single, and then Jim Bottomley hit an RBI double to win it, a walk-off double to win it for the Cardinals. So the 1931 Cardinals advance. So we are ready for the next round. The next round will see a matchup between the 1933 Washington Nationals against the 1931 Philadelphia Athletics. Over in the National League, we will have the 1935 Cubs playing the 1931 Cardinals. And then in the losers bracket, we'll have the 1939 Yankees playing the 1935 Tigers and the 1939 Reds facing off against the 1934 Giants. Now, if teams lose this 5-game series in the losers bracket, they are eliminated from the tournament. So it will be interesting to see who advances in this next round. That's just a little bit of a recap on the tournament. If you want to see, keep up to date on the action, you can head over to baseballmaelstrom.com and click on the Best of the 30s tournament page, where you'll see a link to the tournament bracket, a write-up on each game, and stats. So, speaking of stats, Let's take a look at the stats. Washington Nationals with the best ERA, 2.78 team ERA here in the tournament, despite a batting average of only 260, almost the worst batting average in the American League. That being said, if we look at how many runs they've scored, they've actually scored the most runs of any team, interestingly enough, despite a poor batting average. They're just taking advantage of all of their chances. So that's interesting. They do, as I said, they have the best ERA of any team in the league, in the American League. If we head over to the National League, we can see that the best ERA in the National League is the Chicago Cubs, the 35 Chicago Cubs with a 3.41. They also have the best average, 3.16 average. So best offense and best pitching is a good testament to their 3-0 record there. Take a look at the leaderboards. Let's take a look at the overall batting leaders. See, Jimmy Dice hitting 611. Keep in mind this, these guys have only played in many cases up to 5 games. A couple more for the play-in teams, like the Washington Nationals will have a few more games than that, since they had an extra series in there. Mel Ott is leading in slugging, which isn't a surprise since he has 5 homers. Jimmy Dice also leading in on-base percentage. So he's just tearing it up, really. Overall, Mel Ott and Frank McCormick are tied for the RBI lead, 10 apiece. Mel Ott just leading in so many offensive categories. Total bases, of course. We have had a few stolen bases here or there. Nobody really stands out there. So that's what the batting looks like. Let's take a look at the pitching here. Pitching leaders, of course, there's most of these guys don't have more than a start. Couple of guys have more than one start, but not very many. Lefty Grove here with 12 strikeouts. Of course, Boston has been eliminated, so he won't get any more than that. Jack Russell has a couple of saves to lead things on the save department. Tex Carlton in relief, I believe, or was that? I believe that was in relief. Has not a lot of base runner yet. And so that's interesting. We have had a couple pitchers with more than one quality start there. Of course, I'm using ball stat and ball score to keep track of my stats. So that's the program I'm using here. That just gives you a quick little update on the leaders. As I said, most of these guys, the most games they've played is 8. And that's Washington. Most of these teams have played 5 or fewer games. So still a pretty small sample size. But very interesting to see so far. I want to thank you all for watching. Head over to baseballmaelstrom.com if you want to keep following the action. And until next time, have a great evening.